All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, folks, we're finally here. The college football playoff for this year is about to kick off. And I'll tell you like this, I'm really looking forward to this thing. There's some controversy, which is to be expected. When you have a tournament like this with so many teams coveting those slots, but nonetheless, these are the 12 teams that are going to be participating. And after this weekend, we're going to be down to 8. We've got one game tomorrow night, as well as a triple header for this Saturday. A lot of conferences, represented in this. A lot of intriguing storylines as well. But like I said, I am really looking forward to this thing and want to get things started tomorrow night in a matchup of a pair of teams from the Southeastern Conference. And I'm talking about the ninth seed in the Alabama Crimson Tide traveling to Norman to take on the eighth seed in the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, for Alabama, of course, there's plenty of controversy hovering around the Crimson Tide coming into this one. Why? Because there are some people who feel that Alabama should not be in the CFP after their blowout loss to Georgia in the SEC championship game. But nonetheless, the Crimson Tide are here, and they're going to be facing a team that they've had some issues with for quite some time. Number one, Oklahoma has never lost to Alabama since they joined the SEC. The Sooners are 2-0, and nonetheless, Alabama is just 1-5 overall in their last 6 games against the Sooners. But let's go back to earlier this season when Brent Venables and Oklahoma went on the road and knocked off the Crimson Tide. And at that point, Alabama was rolling. And how did Oklahoma do it? They did it with their defense, okay? And that's one thing that we know about Brent Venables. He can coach up a defense, and he has a defense now that is capable of playing and succeeding in the Southeastern Conference. And of course, we have seen that this year. Ty Simpson, to me, I really think is going to have to play a better game. And you look at this Alabama team overall, they're -5 in the turnovers in their last 2 games against Oklahoma. And of course, in both of those games, Kalen DeBoer was the head coach for Alabama. And of course, Brent Venables was the head coach for Oklahoma. Now, for Ty Simpson, 4 out of his 5 interceptions this season have come in his last 4 games. Did not do a good job protecting the football in the loss to Oklahoma. And honestly, I'm going to give a lot of credit there to the Sooners defense for taking care of business. So the big thing for me with Alabama, I'm looking at it like this. Jam Miller is expected to be healthy and ready to go in the game. Of course, he was not there in the SEC championship game. He's been banged up all season long. And having him healthy is going to do a lot for this run game for the Crimson Tide as they go on the road. If Alabama's able to run the football, of course, that's going to open things up for play action with the likes of Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams. Defensively, I know that the Crimson Tide can hang with this Oklahoma offense, but like I said before, I am putting the onus on Ty Simpson. On the flip side, talking about getting guys back, R. Mason Thomas is expected to be back on that D line for the Sooners in this one. And of course, we know that the difference maker that he can be. We haven't seen him since Oklahoma's win over Tennessee. Overall, the Sooners defense is 9th in the nation. You don't have to remind Alabama about that because they can simply get after people. Keep an eye out for linebacker Kip Lewis in this one. Now, speaking of defenses, is Alabama's defense going to be able to rattle Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer? That's going to be important in this one. I think this is going to be a very interesting chess match throughout between Kalen DeBoer as well as Ty Simpson. Which defense is going to keep the opposing offense out of the end zone as frequently? That's going to be the $1,000,000 question. The Sooners are favored by 1.5 in this one. Like I always say, one of the toughest things to do is defeat a team twice in the regular season. I think Alabama finds a way to get it done this time, 27-23. Now, moving on to Saturday, we've got the 10th seed Miami Hurricanes traveling to College Station to take on the 7th ranked Texas A&M Aggies. And of course, the winner of this game, their next game is guaranteed to be in the state of Texas. Why? Because they're going to be facing Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And of course, Miami is representing the ACC. They're carrying that ACC banner in spite of the fact that they are not conference champions. Long story there, but nonetheless, for Miami, they got to go on the road and, of course, try to knock off Texas A&M, a darn good A&M team. I think what Mario Cristobal and company need to do is they want to score early, and they have to try to find a way to take that raucous crowd at Kyle Field out of the game. Easier said than done. This is why I'm putting the onus in this one on quarterback Carson Beck. We saw Miami spend a lot of money through NILs in the portal this time last year to get Carson Beck from Georgia. These are the games why you went out there and got Carson Beck. These are the games why you went out there and paid him the type of money that he did. The Hurricanes had the top defense in the ACC this season. Is it going to translate to success against A&M? I'll tell you like this. College Station, like I said, is going to be jumping for this one, but nonetheless, I'm looking at A&M. They've had 3 weeks now to digest that loss to Texas. And, of course, that loss from Texas not only prevented them from finishing the regular season undefeated, it also prevented them from getting to the SEC championship game and potentially having a first round bye. Defensively, we know what the Aggies can do with the likes of Cassius Howell and linebacker Torian York. Marcel Reed, the athlete, is he going to have success at quarterback in this game against this Hurricanes defense? If he can get it going, along with Ruben Owens in the backfield, that's going to open things up for the likes of KC Concepcion and Mario Craver in this one. A&M comes in favored by 3.5 points. Mario Cristobal is going to have his team ready to play, but I think Mike Elko will as well. I like Texas A&M at home in this one, 30-24. Now, an old Southeast Conference battle. Yes, old. As you have 11th ranked Tulane traveling to take on 6th ranked Ole Miss. And I say this because once upon a time, Tulane was a part of the SEC. Of course, that was several generations ago. But nonetheless, you have the American Athletic Conference champions making the short trek to take on the boys from Oxford in this one. I'll tell you like this. Tulane is walking into a buzzsaw, and I know that Tulane's going to have some changes, and they're already having changes right now because, of course, their head coach John Sumrall is set to take over at Florida whenever the Green Wave season is over. But nonetheless, we all know what has gone down and transpired for Ole Miss since the last time that they played football. They lost their head coach Lane Kiffin to LSU. A few of the coaches left, but the bulk of the players, coaches stayed, and all of the players have stayed, of course. And it's one of those where I think this team is playing with a chip on their shoulder, and they have something to go out there and prove. Sans Lane Kiffin, I'll tell you like this: Tulane has a very good team. Tulane has had a good season. It was going to be tough for Tulane coming into this game anyway, but now I feel like Ole Miss has some added motivation in this one. We know that the Rebels are favored by 17.5 points in this one. I think they go out there and take care of their business, and I like Ole Miss at home, 37-20. And finally, the 12th seeded James Madison representing the Sun Belt. First team from the Sun Belt to get to the college football playoff. And of course, they are making the cross-country trip to Eugene to take on 5th ranked Oregon. You look at this contest, the Ducks come in favored by 20.5, and a lot of people expect them to run roughshod over James Madison in this one. For James Madison to go out there and find a way to pull off the upset, they've got to stick to their guns, and that's quarterback Alonzo Bennett and running back Wayne Knight. But it's not going to be easy going up against this Oregon defense, which was 4th in the nation this season, with the likes of Bryce Petcher at linebacker, Dante Moore at quarterback, Noah Whittington at running back for Oregon. I think they have big games in this one. And when it's all said and done, I like the Ducks to take care of their business going away in this one, 44 to 20. Myth 4201, what's going on? You're saying it's going to be so bad. Listen, I have to concur with you. I'll tell you like this. I feel like the first two playoff games right here that we're going to see, I think they're going to be much closer contested. Of course, a pair of SEC teams going at it tomorrow night, and then you got SEC and ACC early Saturday. But nonetheless, I truly do feel, like I said before, Tulane is really walking into a buzzsaw in this one, having to deal with Ole Miss. And then James Madison, I think James Madison, it's a feel good story, yes. But having to travel across country and having to take on Oregon, Dan Lanning is going to have his team ready to play. You're saying they're not 2010 Boise. Well, 2010 Boise, 2007 Boise, any way you want to slice it, it's not going to be that type of Cinderella. And it's unfortunate because I do feel that we're going to see both James Madison and Tulane lose by double digits this weekend. And of course, the naysayers are going to sit up there and say, hey, well, I told you so. But again, go back and look at last year's first round of the playoff blowouts between teams from the power conferences. On top of that, we've seen it where the quote unquote group of five has played power conferences in major bowl games and they've won. Go back when Utah was in the Mountain West and they knocked off Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. Of course, Boise State knocking off Oklahoma. And we can go right down the list, okay? But nonetheless, it's it's all about matchups. And the bottom line is James Madison does not match up well with Oregon. Tulane, they could match up somewhat with Ole Miss. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but like I said, you are facing a motivated Ole Miss team because they want to go out there and prove that they can do it without Lane Kiffin. So when it's all said and done, I think the game tomorrow night, as well as the early game on Saturday, are close. But like I said, those final two playoff games, I think, are going to be blowouts. So when it's all said and done, I like the Crimson Tide to get to the Rose Bowl to take on Indiana, which will be a good game in my opinion. I think Indiana versus either Alabama or Oklahoma are going to be good. Oregon, I think they advanced to face Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. We're already seeing one SEC on SEC matchup this round, and I think when it's all said and done, we're going to see another one in the second round because I think Ole Miss takes care of their business at home against Tulane, and because of that, they'll get a trip to the Sugar Bowl to take on Georgia, and then finally, when it's all said and done, A&M has this home game here, and I think they're going to have another de facto home game if they beat Miami and get to the Cotton Bowl to take on Ohio State. And that would also be funny if we see Ohio State, Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. And the reason is last year the Cotton Bowl was one of the semifinals for the college football playoff. And of course, we saw Ohio State knock off Texas. And if you think back through the history of the Cotton Bowl and you think about both Texas and Texas A&M, of course, they were staples for so many years in the now defunct Southwest Conference. And of course, the Southwest Conference champion each and every year was guaranteed a berth in the Cotton Bowl. But nonetheless, if A&M does get past Miami and get to Arlington for that one, I guarantee you they'll have a home field advantage with the crowd. But I don't think Ohio State will be phased. That's neither here nor there. You're saying you could see teams shifting for playoff positioning then for where it's weak. I think it all comes down to the seeding. And I'll tell you like this, the group of five is always going to be at the end of the discussion. And that goes back to last year's frustration, from people when Boise got a first round bye, because that made a lot of people sit up in their chairs and like, hey, that's not supposed to happen, even though it did. So I think from here on out, you're going to see the group of five in this position towards the end of the docket. But at the end of the day, no disrespect to James Madison or Tulane, but you're not going to have them ahead of everybody else in this specific field right here. But nonetheless, like I said, I think we're going to get two good games this weekend. The other two, I'm not so sure about. But nonetheless, this is the first round, and I think the more we get into this tournament, the better the games are going to be. But nonetheless, it's going to be intense. Okay, I think James Madison, they're going to show up and play on Saturday, but they're fighting an uphill battle for against Oregon, and I think the same goes with Tulane. Alabama, they have to be more precise offensively, which is something they have not been doing, or they haven't done rather in their last two games against Oklahoma. You're saying people were upset about Miami and Notre Dame, but it's always something every year. Absolutely. Listen, it's always going to be something, whether it's the BCS, 14 playoff, 12-team playoff. You could expand this thing to 25 teams. There would be a 26 team that would be upset. Did Notre Dame have a legit gripe? Absolutely. But if it's 10-2 Miami and 10-2 Notre Dame, of course, we know who gets the edge there. And like I said before, nobody should be mad at James Madison. They did what they were supposed to do. I felt like the biggest issue was the ACC not having Miami against Virginia, because if you had Miami take on Virginia and Miami wins, they get the automatic bid for the ACC as one of the top five highest ranked conference champions. They're in there. James Madison is not. And guess what? Notre Dame is. And we're really not having this conversation now. You said, oh, you got to have some offense tomorrow. Yeah, their offense did not look good against Alabama last time out, but it was their defense and their special teams that was the difference in that game. That is why I am putting the onus on one Ty Simpson for that one. He's got to go out there and he has to take care of his business in this one if Alabama's going to go on the road and get a win. And of course, if Alabama does not get a win, there's going to be the naysayers popping up, for Kalen DeBoer, and there's also going to be the naysayers that say, hey, you know what? They shouldn't have been in this thing to begin with after their blowout loss to Georgia. So there's a lot on the line for the Crimson Tide in this one. I think there's a lot on the line for Oklahoma as well, because Brent Venables has his fair share of naysayers as well, and he wants to go out there and win that big game. So I think that is going to make for a good game tomorrow. You look at Miami and Texas A&M, like I said, a lot to prove right there if you're Mario Cristobal and company. This is why you were brought back home to have these types of games with Miami. And, of course, if you're A&M, you just had a phenomenal regular season, 11-1, avoided some of the big boys, if you will, in the SEC, but they still took care of their business. And now there's an opportunity for them to build off of one of their best seasons in program history. And, of course, the Ducks, they're expected to win. They've got to take care of their business. And the same thing can be said for Ole Miss. And I think Ole Miss is really going to come out laser focused. I cannot say this enough. They want to go out there and prove it wasn't just about Lane Kiffin. And anytime in sports where you have extra motivation, you have somebody with a chip on their shoulders, look out. Like I said, to me, I truly do feel Tulane is walking into a buzzsaw in Oxford on Saturday afternoon. Yeah, Ole Miss is going to be hungry and then some. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Myth, as always, definitely thank you for chiming in. Definitely appreciate your comments. And definitely keep me in mind this weekend when you're watching the CFP, because I've definitely got a lot to talk about on these contests. And that goes for everybody else. Definitely be sure to be keyed in to this channel this weekend, as I'm going to have a lot to talk about all of the dealings in the college football playoff for round number 1. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out at any time at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it'll be my pleasure to do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. And if I hadn't mentioned it before, I'm not sure, please forgive me. I might be having a senior moment here. But if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, please feel free to hit that like button. And if you haven't already, definitely feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you have, and you know somebody else who might like it, definitely reach out to them as well. Also, if you're on Facebook, definitely be sure to check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.